Hey guys, it's the Junior Coder, and welcome back to the Introduction to Raspberry Pi 4 tutorial series. This is part 5 of the series, and in this part, we're going to be taking a look at buttons. So, let's go right into it. So in this tutorial, we're actually going to be making a simple game using buttons. So before we get into how to build this project, we need to go over the parts used. So first, you need a breadboard. Next, you need 4 female-to-male jumper wires, and you also need 2 male-to-male jumper wires, and you need an LED. Now the LED can be any color you choose, but in this tutorial I chose red. Next, you need a 220 ohm resistor, and lastly you need 2 buttons. So now that we're done going over the parts used, let's get started on how to build this game. So first, let's look at the button itself. As you can see, the buttons are very small and they have 4 legs. But we don't actually need all 4 legs to use this button. We only need 2. So either these 2 on this side or these 2. It doesn't matter. And it doesn't matter which one is ground and which one is positive. Both could work. So we are going to take 2 of these buttons and build a reaction game. So next we need to look at the Raspberry Pi itself. And now we're going to be taking female to male jumper wires like this one right here. So one has a pin and one has no pin, as you can see. And we're going to be plugging them into these GPIO pins. Okay, so first we're going to be taking one of these female to male jumper wires, and we're going to be plugging that into ground. And if you look at this very helpful image right here, you can see that the ground pin is actually the 3rd from the bottom. So pin 6. Now we have a few ground pins on the GPIO board. So in total we have about 8 ground pins. So it doesn't matter which one, but we're going to be using pin 6 in this case. So that is 3rd on bottom. Right there. So once that is done, we're going to be plugging a female to male wire to connect the buttons. So we're going to be taking 2 female to male wires. It doesn't matter what color. So the first one goes to the 2nd on the top. And the second one goes to the 3rd on the top. So if you look at it from the top, you can see that on the top we have the button jumper wires, and on the bottom we have the ground. So if you look at this image again, you can see that 2nd and 3rd on the top is actually GPIO pins 2 and 3. So just remember that, we're going to use that later. Next we're going to be plugging in the LED jumper wire. So I have another female to male jumper wire for that, and this one goes to pin 17. Now it says here that GPIO 17 is actually 6th on the top. So we know that these are GPIO pins 2 and 3. So we're going to go 3 pins over to the left, starting from this orange wire. So 1, 2, and 3. So there should be 2 pins between the orange and the red wires. So now we are done with plugging in the female to male jumper wires. Now we can get to the breadboard. So back to the breadboard. And now we're going to be plugging in the buttons. Now as I said before, it does not matter which one is ground and which one gets the voltage, and we only need 2 legs per button. So I'm actually going to plug this into the left and right side of the breadboard. So the first one goes to the right side, and if you look carefully you can see that 2 legs are on one side and the other 2 are on the other side. So just make sure to do it this way or else your button will not work. So that one went on the right side, so the next one goes to the left side. So let's do that. Now as you can see, 2 on this side and 2 on that side. So now we're going to be plugging in the ground pin. So as you can see right here, we're going to be plugging this female to male jumper wire to the bottom right corner of our breadboard. Now it doesn't matter what corner, but I'm just gonna do it right here. Now I'm gonna be taking one of the button female to male wires I set up. So I'm gonna be taking the orange one first, and we're gonna be plugging that in to one of the sides of the button. I'm gonna be plugging it into the left side. So now we have the positive side of the button set up. So now we need the ground side. Now as I said, we connected the ground pin to the ground rail on our breadboard. So all we need to do is grab a male to male jumper wire and put one side of it in the ground rail and the other side to the ground row of our button. So as you can see, there should be one pin between the positive and the ground sides. So now we're done with the left one. We're gonna go over to the right one now. And now we're gonna be plugging in the purple female to male wire. And the purple one should go to the right side. And we're gonna be grabbing another male to male jumper wire. And one side of it goes to the ground rail. And one side goes to the ground row of our button. Now as you can see, there should be one pin between the positive and the ground sides. So now we're going to be getting onto the LED. So I'm going to be grabbing a normal red LED. So as you can see, this is the longer leg. That means this is positive. So we're going to be plugging that in like this. Positive is on the right, just remember that. So now we need a resistor. We're going to be getting a 220 ohm resistor. Now as you can see, 220 ohm is red, red, black, black, and brown. If you look at the color code chart, it says the same thing. Red, red, black, black, and brown. So we're going to plug that into the negative side of the LED, that is the left side. And then we're going to be plugging in the other side of the resistor to the ground rail. So let's do that. So one side goes to the negative side, the other side goes to the ground rail. So your ground row of your LED should look like this. So next we're going to be grabbing the LED female to male jumper wire, GPIO 17, and then we're going to be plugging that in to the right side of the LED. Remember, that's the longer leg, that means it's the positive side. So as you can see, the positive row of your LED should look like this. And this positive jumper wire gets us to GPIO 17, which we will code later. Okay, so now we're done building the project. So here is how your final hardware setup should look like. On the top we have our Raspberry Pi and all of its GPIO pins, and on the bottom we have the breadboard. So if your setup does not look like this, make sure you watch this video one more time. Once you've done that, we can finalize this game with our code. So now we're on the Raspberry Pi desktop. So we go to the top left corner, click on the applications menu, and go to programming, Python IDE. So now we're going to import a few modules. So first we're going to import the button and the LED classes from the GPIO module. So from GPIO 0, import button, comma, LED, all capital. And then we're going to import the sleep function from the time module. By writing from time module, we import the sleep function. This sleep function basically pauses our program for the given amount of seconds. We will take a look at that later. And lastly, we're going to import the random module. If you don't remember, we looked at the random module in my Intro to Python tutorial series. If you haven't checked that out yet, I'll leave a link to the series in the description. So next, we're going to set up the LEDs and the buttons. So we have one LED, let's call that LED. So first we're going to set LED to the LED class, and we set it to pin 17. Then we set player 1 to a button, and the GPIO pin for that is 2. And player 2 is also a button, and the GPIO pin is 3. Now we write time, and we're gonna do random.randint. So if you don't remember, randint chooses a random number between the two given values. So we'll pass 5 and 10. So this will get a random number between numbers 5 and 10, and then it will assign it to our time variable. And then we go to the next line, and then we'll call the sleep function for the given amount of time. Whatever the value of our time variable is, it will sleep our program for that amount of time. And then right after that, we're gonna do led.on, so that turns on our LED. And then we're gonna make an infinite loop. If you don't know how to make an infinite loop, it's basically while true. And then we're gonna add some if statements here. So the first one is if player 1 dot is pressed. So is pressed is a function from the button class. So if the player 1 button is pressed, we want to print player 1 wins. If you don't know what we're making here, basically we're gonna program a game. In that game, we're gonna wait for the LED to turn on. We don't know how long it will take before it turns on. That's why we use the randint function. So all we know is that it's between 5 to 10 seconds. So between 5 to 10 seconds, the LED will turn on, and then the first player to press their button wins the game. So back to our program. Right after printing that message, we break our loop. So the only way to break an infinite loop is by using the break keyword. And then we're gonna make another if statement. So if player 2 dot is pressed, then we're gonna print player 2 wins. And then we're gonna break our loop again. And right after our loop is broken, so out of our while loop, we're gonna do led.off. So now let's run our program. Then as you can see, the LED should turn on in between 5 to 10 seconds. Right after the LED is on, the first player to press their button wins. So on the left is player number 1, and on the right is player number 2. So if we press the one on the right, and then you can see that it says player 2 wins. But if we run our program again, wait for the LED to turn on, and this time when it's on, we'll press the player 1 button instead of the player 2 button. So if we press that, you can see that our LED turns off, and then here it says player 1 wins. So that'll be it for part 5 of this series. If you learned something, then don't forget to like, share, and subscribe to my channel. And keep a lookout for part 6 of this series. And I'll see you in the next one. Bye.